A family vanished without a trace, just a mother's terrified whisper. They don't want us to leave. For 15 years, no one asked why, until Agent Dalton uncovered a hidden facility built to erase voices like theirs. Armed only with a hard drive and the truth, she exposed a system that punished silence and nearly lost everything doing it. But wait until you see how deep the cover-up went and why justice, in the end, couldn't be silenced. The Arizona air vibrated with heat waves as the Lambert family's beige minivan sped down the endless two-lane highway. The sky was blindingly clear, a brutal blue with no clouds for mercy. Cicadas screamed from invisible hiding spots. Thomas's knuckles turned white on the steering wheel. Helen's eyes didn't blink. "Tom," she said, quieter now, "it's still behind us." He didn't answer, just checked the mirror again. Sarah's voice rose from the back seat. "Mom, Daniel took the last juice." "I didn't," Daniel yelled, cheeks flushed. "She dropped hers." "Guys, not now," Helen snapped, then turned to Thomas. "He's still back there?" Tom nodded once. "It's the same one. No front plate, tinted windows, been matching our speed for 40 minutes. Helen reached into her bag, pulled out the prepaid phone they'd bought 2 days earlier in a dusty Walmart. Her hand trembled as she scrolled through the contacts. There were none. She typed in 911, pressed call. The line connected. 1 ring, 2, then the hum of static. "Emergency services," a woman's voice said. Helen lowered her voice, almost a breath. "We're being followed. Same black SUV, no plates. We're—" The call dropped. Helen stared at the screen. No bars. She held it up to the window. Tom's voice was low, cold. "They know we tried to report it." She turned toward him, her breath catching. "What does that mean?" "They're doing something to jam us, or we're already in dead space." Sarah kicked the back of Helen's seat. "Mommy, he spilled juice on me." "Daniel, stop it," Helen snapped again, her tone more desperate. "Just stop." Tom hit the blinker. "We need to turn off. Find a gas station, somewhere public." "There's nothing here, Tom." Helen scanned the desert. "It's all cactus and goddamn rock." A green sign flashed by. "Rest stop, 3 miles." Tom pressed harder on the gas. The SUV didn't speed up. It didn't fall behind. It followed, like a tether. As they approached the rest stop, Helen looked over her shoulder. A second vehicle had joined behind the SUV. Red pickup, rusted, also with no front plate. "Another one," she whispered. Tom didn't answer. He pulled into the rest stop without signaling. Dirt crunched under tires. An old vending machine stood crooked next to a wooden bench. One trash bin. No people. No cameras.
The SUV didn't stop. It kept going down the highway. The red pickup, too. Helen exhaled. Maybe it's nothing, just coincidence. Tom didn't look convinced. He parked and jumped out, scanning the horizon. Nothing but heat, wind, silence. Then he opened the sliding door for the kids. "Bathroom break," he said, trying to sound calm. "There's no bathroom," Sarah complained. "Behind the bush," Tom said. "Boys one side, girls the other." Helen hesitated, then climbed out too. "We shouldn't stay long." She caught something glinting in the grass behind the vending machine, walked over. A license plate, bent, Arizona issue, scratched out numbers. She called out, "Tom." He walked over, took the plate from her. "Why hide this?" "Because it was removed, or switched," Tom said. Suddenly, a burst of engine noise behind them. The black SUV had turned around. Helen grabbed the kids. "In the car, now." Tom jumped in. Doors slammed. Tires screeched. They peeled back onto the highway. SUV behind them again. Helen redialed 911. "Come on, come on." The phone beeped. Connected. A voice. 911, what's your emergency?" Helen tried to stay calm. "We're being followed. Black SUV, no plates. Arizona Highway 82, just past mile marker 204. Please. A long pause. Then, repeat that? Who's following you? I don't know, her voice cracked. They don't want us to leave. We tried to turn around, but the line went dead. Tom, they're cutting us off. He slammed his palm on the wheel. That's not possible, not unless. A sharp flash of light hit them from behind, bright, too bright for headlights, like a camera flash, but larger. The kids screamed, the car jolted. Then, silence. No more SUV, no pickup, nothing but highway behind them. Tom slowed. Helen spun around. Empty. Not a single vehicle in sight. Did you see that? She asked. Tom nodded slowly. They're playing with us. Sarah whimpered, curling into her seatbelt. Are they gonna take us? No, sweetheart, Helen whispered, voice shaking. No one's taking anyone. Tom didn't speak. He just drove. Faster now. Farther into nowhere. Into the heat, the silence, and the first signs of the vanishing.
David Mallory hunched over his desk, illuminated only by the soft glow of 3 monitors and a lava lamp that hadn't worked since 2007. His coffee had gone cold 2 hours ago, but he didn't care. Google Earth had just updated, and for David, that was Christmas. He clicked and scrolled, zooming over forgotten back roads and empty parking lots, searching for nothing in particular, just hoping to catch something strange. Then he saw it. Off Route 191, 3 miles north of an abandoned gas station, in a service lot no one ever used, something appeared where yesterday there had been nothing. A beige Honda Odyssey, 2007 model. Light shimmered across its windshield. It looked pristine. Too pristine. David's heart thumped. He zoomed in closer. The van was perfectly parked, aligned neatly between faded parking lines, but there were no tire marks around it, no footprints in the surrounding sand, no shadows of movement. He checked the timestamp, March 29th, 2023. Today. He fumbled for his phone, called the county sheriff. He gave coordinates, details, voice shaking with urgency. I know it sounds insane, but it wasn't there yesterday. What exactly are you looking at, sir? The dispatcher asked. A van, parked like someone placed it there with tweezers, and no tracks, none. The dispatcher hesitated. We'll send someone to check it out. David waited. 2 hours, then 3. No callback. He couldn't sit still. He refreshed the image. Still there. 6 hours later, he drove out. He needed to see it for himself. He pulled up to the lot just before midnight. Desert silence surrounded him. The lot stretched wide, cracked concrete framed by nothing but dirt and wind. But the van was gone. He stood in the headlights of his Subaru, staring at the empty space where it had been. No van. But something was there. A melted tire imprint, still warm to the touch. David knelt. Inside the print lay a baby shoe, pale pink, soft leather, untouched by dust. His breath caught. He picked it up carefully. It was clean, too clean, as if it had just been placed. A breeze swept across the lot, and David turned. Someone was watching. He scanned the dark. Nothing, no lights, no engine noise, but the feeling crawled up his spine like a parasite. He wasn't alone. He jumped back into his car, locked the doors, called the sheriff again. Hello, it's Mallory. I'm here. The van's gone, but something's wrong. Someone's out here. The voice on the other end was flat. Sir, there's no record of your previous call. What? We don't have a report for that location. I gave coordinates twice. A pause. Where did you say you were again? David looked at his phone. The call disconnected. Dead screen. No signal. He started the car, headlights flicking on, then flicking off again, then on again. They stayed on, but behind the beams, dust stirred. Movement. He drove, fast, tires screeching, back to the highway. But in his rearview mirror, nothing. No one followed. At home, he locked every door, pushed a dresser in front of the front door. Then he uploaded screenshots of the satellite image to Reddit. Within minutes, the post exploded. Is this the Lambert van? Coordinates match the original disappearance zone. No tracks, government cloaking tech? A user posted a zoomed-in crop of the windshield. Enhance this. The glare obscured most of it, but just beneath the glass, two shapes. Heads, frozen, facing forward. And next to the passenger seat, something small, pink, a baby shoe, just like the one in David's hand. He dropped it, backed away from his desk. Then came a knock at the door. Soft, one, then two. Then his phone lit up on its own. Unknown number. Message, don't upload the rest. He stared at the screen. Message deleted. Then a new one. You've seen enough. Then the baby shoe was gone.
Special Agent Renee Dalton stood outside Marianne Carter's trailer, the wind scraping dust across her boots. The place looked abandoned. Peeling paint, two dead porch plants, and an American flag bleached almost white. She knocked once, twice. A voice snapped from inside. "If it's church, I ain't interested." "FBI," Dalton called out. "I'm not selling salvation." The door creaked open. Marianne squinted, cigarette between her lips, eyes sunken and watery. "Took you long enough." Dalton stepped inside. The air smelled like ashtrays and old grief. Piles of magazines, empty mugs, and a cracked photo frame of two young girls, one clearly Helen. Marianne moved stiffly, like every movement cost her. "She called me, you know," Marianne said, settling into a dented recliner. "What did she say exactly?" Dalton kept her voice flat. Marianne inhaled deep, blew smoke toward the ceiling. She sounded wrong, rushed. Said Tom found something while hiking. Not a person, not a place, a thing. What thing? She called it a map, but not a regular one. Said it wasn't paper. Said it hummed. Dalton blinked. It hummed? Like electronics, like it was still alive. Marianne leaned forward. Said it had numbers etched into it, coordinates, latitude, longitude, and a warning in Russian. Dalton pulled out her notebook. "You're sure she said Russian?" "She didn't say French, honey." "What happened next?" "She told me not to tell anyone. Said they were being watched. That black cars were showing up, lights in the hills behind their motel, static on every phone call." Marianne paused. "And then she said something real strange." "What?" "She said, if we disappear, don't let them bury it again." Dalton looked up. "Bury what?" "The truth. Whatever they found." Dalton scribbled a note, then looked up. "Did she give you anything?" Marianne stood. Her hand trembled as she opened a drawer. She pulled out a small black canister, 35mm film, faded label in red marker. "If we disappear." Dalton took it gently. "You never developed this?" "I couldn't. I was afraid." "Of what?" Marianne's voice dropped. "Of seeing them dead. Or worse, seeing something I couldn't explain." Dalton stood, slid the canister into her coat. "You did the right thing." She turned to leave, but paused. "Did she say where the object was, the map?" "She hid it," Marianne said, "under the floor of the van, taped to the spare tire well." Dalton nodded, exited into the fading daylight. Back at FBI Field HQ, she placed the film canister on her desk, next to the baby shoe recovered from the desert lot. Same shade of pink, same stitching. Dalton stared at the shoe. "Where's the other one?" she muttered. She waved over her analyst. "Get this developed immediately, priority." He nodded, took the canister, vanished down the hall. Dalton returned to her desk, opened the audio file of the 911 call. Helen's voice crackled through the speakers again. Desperate, whispered, "They're following us. They don't want us to leave. We tried to turn around, but..." Then the static. Dalton closed her eyes, replayed the final word in her mind. But what? But who? Her desk phone rang. Internal extension. "Dalton," she answered. "Ma'am, you asked for location cross-referencing on abandoned military zones near Route 191? Yes?" The analyst's voice dropped. "There's one.
It's not on any public record. Last entry dated 1984. Location redacted. Dalton frowned. Name? K-12 Reclamation Zone. She froze. Who used it? No official unit assigned. But one more thing. There's a declassified Cold War memo attached to the area. Reference to experimental navigation artifacts. Russian origin. Dalton stood. Send it to me. I already did. Also, the film's been developed. There's 12 frames. Most are standard, family vacation stuff. And the rest? The analyst paused. One shows a silver disc, on dirt, looks metallic. It has markings. Dalton's breath slowed. Show me. An image popped on her screen. The object was round, flat, and covered in scratches. In the center, an insignia, Soviet hammer and sickle, barely visible. Around the rim, engraved numbers, coordinates, and something else, a word in Russian. She typed it into a translator. Reclaimed. She looked at the baby shoe again, then back at the photo. What the hell did the Lamberts uncover? And who was trying so hard to keep it buried?
The lights in the FBI lab buzzed low as the negatives dried. Dalton stood over the table, arms crossed, eyes locked on the freshly printed photos. The first 10 felt innocent, deceptively so. Sun-soaked images of a family clinging to normalcy. Sarah holding a cactus-shaped lollipop. Daniel covered in red slushy. Helen squinting into the sun, hand over her eyes. Tom leaning on the van with his arms crossed, smirking. And then it changed. Photo 11 wasn't just ominous, it was surgical, framed with intent. A black figure, deep in the distance, framed perfectly between 2 Joshua trees. The jacket stiff like body armor. Binoculars lifted. A hood casting the face in shadow, but not too far. Whoever took the photo had time to focus. Dalton leaned in. This wasn't luck. Helen saw them, knew it was dangerous enough to document. An analyst across the room adjusted the brightness. There's something on the jacket, look. A patch, barely visible. Dalton squinted. No insignia, just a number. Looks like 427, the text said. Dalton nodded once. Get that enhanced. Cross-reference with all known military and contractor IDs, private or blacklisted. Then came photo 12. It made the entire room go silent. Taken from inside the minivan, shot through a fogged windshield, nighttime. Headlights so close behind they bled white across the image. Taillights of a second car just ahead, barely visible in reflection. Helen's handwriting in shaky black ink across the bottom. Still behind us, debris. Dalton felt her throat tighten. She turned to the assembled team. 5 agents, 1 analyst, no room for doubt. This wasn't a random vanishing. This was a pattern. Someone followed them for 3 days. The youngest agent spoke up, voice tight. Why weren't these photos processed back then? Dalton didn't blink. Because no one took them seriously. Because they were just another missing family in a sea of them. Another agent leaned forward. You said Helen's sister had the film. Who gave it to her? Helen, Dalton said, day before they disappeared. Which means, the agent said slowly, Helen knew they were going to vanish. Dalton nodded. Or she knew someone was planning to make them disappear. She tapped the 11th photo. This is the moment she understood it wasn't coincidence. Then the 12th again. This is the moment she understood it was already too late. A silence fell. Then the analyst cleared his throat. Ma'am, you need to see something else. He turned the screen around. Not from the photos. From the metadata embedded in the negatives. Timestamps, he said. Frame 11 and 12, they're digitally misaligned. Dalton raised an eyebrow. How? Frame 11 is from July 10th, 2008. Frame 12, July 15th. Dalton frowned. They were supposed to vanish on the 12th. Exactly, he said, which means this last frame was taken 3 days after they were already reported missing. She leaned over the table. Someone found the camera after, took one last photo. The room chilled. Another agent, older, ex-military, muttered, "It's a message." Dalton straightened. "Or a warning." She paced. "Someone wanted us to think this ended in 2008, but the evidence suggests otherwise. Something, someone, kept them moving, even after the news went quiet." Another agent said, "We need to find that road, the angle in the photo, the terrain." Dalton snapped her fingers. "Do it. Run topographic matches. And get the raw satellite archives for July 15, 2008. If that van was on any paved road, someone saw it." The analyst paused. "Ma'am, you said Helen's handwriting was on that 12th photo." Dalton turned. "Yeah? If she was gone by the 12th, and this photo's from the 15th? Dalton didn't breathe. "Then who wrote it?" They all turned to the picture again. The handwriting was the same, but the signature at the bottom corner? Not Helen, not Tom, just two letters. R.D. Dalton whispered, "That's not possible." The analyst stared. "You think someone forged her handwriting?" Dalton shook her head. "No, I think someone wanted me to see it." She grabbed the original photo, flipped it over. On the back, pressed deep into the paper, a second set of writing, barely visible, scratched with something sharp. She tilted the paper under the light. 4 digits, and one word. Buried. She whispered it out loud. What the hell did they find?
Dalton gunned the Jeep across the blistered plain. The tire spit up dust like a smoke signal. She had the GPS pulled up on a satellite-linked tablet, but even that started to flicker. Signal dropping, compass skewed, time dissynced. She didn't care. The terrain matched the coordinates from the Lambert satellite anomaly. She knew she was close. Every part of her body told her to turn back, but that wasn't why she flew here. She spotted it through a shimmer of heat. A metal spike. Not natural, too precise. 3 feet tall, driven deep into a mound of sand. At the top, a burned metal plaque twisted at the edges. She stopped the Jeep, stepped out, and approached slowly. The plaque was half melted, still legible. K-12, Reclamation Zone, do not enter. Dalton narrowed her eyes, reached out. The metal was still warm. She clicked her shoulder mic. Dalton to base, found something. Coordinates match. Plaque reads K-12. Static. Then a voice. Not her team. Turn back. Dalton froze. Identify yourself. Silence. Then the voice again. You're already too deep. She spun around, scanned the horizon. Nothing. She tried the mic again. This is Agent Dalton. Who's transmitting? Nothing but wind. She ran back to the Jeep, slammed the door, spun the wheel, and floored it. The Jeep fishtailed before catching traction. She didn't stop looking at the rear view. But something else had been there. 2 sets of tire tracks, not hers. Fresh. She grabbed her phone. No bars. Tried the Jeep's onboard sat-link. Locked out. Panic flickered at the edges of her chest, but she pushed it down. 10 minutes later, she stopped again. Jumped out and crouched beside the tracks. One set matched the Lambert van. The other? Military-grade treads. Too wide for a civilian vehicle. She traced the path. They'd intersected, then diverged again. But only one set went back the way she came. The other continued deeper into the desert. She followed them. 40 minutes later, the temperature dropped. Slightly. Dalton noticed because her palms had stopped sweating. She climbed a ridge and found something terrifying. An old checkpoint, sandblasted, metal gate collapsed, guard booth half buried. And beneath the wind, an echo, mechanical, repeating. She got out, walked toward the booth. A rusted intercom box blinked red. She pressed the button. Static again. Then a man's voice. "You're not on the list." Dalton's heart spiked. "This is Special Agent Renee Dalton, FBI. Identify your facility." "You're not on the list." "Who is?" Click. Intercom died. Dalton turned. Atop the ridge she just crossed, 3 figures stood. Motionless. Black uniforms. One held something long, like a rifle. She ducked behind the booth, drew her Glock, cursed under her breath. They didn't move, didn't speak. She raised the radio again. "FBI agent in need of backup, coordinates." Static cut her off again. Then her radio sparked and went dead. Her SUV engine roared to life. On its own. She looked back. No one in the driver's seat. The Jeep drove off. Shit. She turned. The 3 figures were gone. Vanished. She bolted toward the checkpoint, vaulted the gate. Sand slipped beneath her boots. Beyond the checkpoint, an old building, half buried. Only the roof showed. One steel door. No lock. No handle. She touched it. Cold. A pulse shot through her fingers. She staggered back, heart pounding, finger numb. Then the ground shook. A low rumble. The door hissed open, by itself. Blackness inside. And the faint smell of gasoline and blood. Dalton didn't enter. She reached into her pocket, pulled out a laminated photo of the Lambert family. 4 smiles. 1 minivan. "Tell me where you went," she whispered. From the darkness, a whisper echoed back. "They showed us the map, too." Dalton stepped back. "Who's there?" But no answer came. Just a gust of air from inside. And on that wind, an unmistakable sound. A child laughing.
Dalton leaned over the screen, eyes narrowing. The heat map bloomed in front of her like an infected wound. Orange, red, then white-hot at the center. A rectangular zone, buried in open desert, consistently registering 102 degrees Fahrenheit, day and night. No known structures, no power grid connections, no human activity registered in over 15 years. Her assistant, Paige, hovered behind her. "There's no reason for that kind of temperature, not naturally." Dalton didn't blink. "Pull all archival satellite passes from 2008 onward. I want to know when that zone lit up." Paige hesitated. "You think it's a power source?" "I think it's running something," Dalton straightened. "And whatever it is, never stopped." Paige scrolled. "Ma'am, that zone didn't heat up in 2008. It's been glowing since 1984. Dalton's breath caught. "Get me property records, anyone who claimed that land." "Already checked," Paige said. "It's unlisted. Not military, not civilian. No county records, no federal archives." Dalton stared. "Then who the hell owns it?" Paige clicked again. "Last known entry in a Cold War memo flagged it as K-12 Reclamation Zone. Same tag as your spike." Dalton turned. "And nobody flagged that?" Paige's voice dropped. "Ma'am, that memo was buried under a black seal. Even our clearance couldn't open it." Dalton took a long breath. "Then someone doesn't want us knowing what's down there." She opened the photo again, frame 12. The Lambert van, shot from inside, headlights glowing behind them, reflected faintly in the rearview mirror, was a face. But not Thomas, not Helen, not human. Elongated, unstructured, stand like polished concrete, hollow eyes, no mouth. Dalton froze the image. Zoom, right there. Paige leaned in. "That's not a person." "It's watching," Dalton muttered, from the passenger seat. Paige backed up. That thing was inside with them? Dalton didn't answer. She printed the image, grabbed a red marker, drew a circle around the reflection. Tag this. Send to image recognition, AI, biometric, everything. I want to know if this has ever been captured before. And if it hasn't? Dalton looked up. Then we just proved something no one's ready to admit. She turned to her laptop, opened a new case file, labeled it manually. K-12 entity sighting, level red. Page swallowed. Should we alert local law enforcement? Dalton's hand hovered over the keyboard. No, she said flatly. If Helen was right, local law's compromised. Page stared. You think they're in on it? Dalton's eyes darkened. I think they've been looking the other way for 40 years. A phone buzzed. Internal line. Dalton picked up. Dalton. A man's voice answered. Stop digging. Dalton's grip tightened. Who is this? The voice was calm, unshaken. You've seen too much. Walk away. She clicked record. I don't respond to threats. This isn't a threat, Agent. This is your only warning. The line clicked. Dalton stood, adrenaline rising. Trace that call. Page nodded, fingers flying. Reroute it through 6 proxies, all dead nodes. Last ping? Yuma Correctional Database Server. Dalton frowned. A prison server? No, a ghost server. They buried it in '97. It shouldn't even be active. Dalton grabbed her coat. I'm going to Arizona. Page blinked. You just got back. I missed something. You going alone? Dalton didn't answer. She left the photo on her desk. Underneath it, a note in Helen's handwriting. 3 words. They know now. Dalton stopped in the doorway, looked back. Page held up her phone. Ma'am, I reran the facial recognition. Nothing human matches. Dalton raised an eyebrow. And inhuman? Page hesitated, then turned the screen. One match. From a declassified Soviet file, 1981, labeled in Cyrillic. Translated, Observer Class, Non-Terrestrial. Dalton stared. There was a second line. Translation, Do not engage. Observes only when data is compromised. Dalton exhaled slowly. They weren't hunting the Lamberts. Page looked confused. Then why follow them? Dalton turned to the photo one last time. They were studying them. She picked up the photo, slid it into a new file, and whispered to herself. And now, they're watching us.
They moved in silence, flashlights dimmed to slivers. Dalton led the way, Glock drawn, sweat gathering at her temples. The air below the hatch was thick, smelling of copper, mildew, and something else. Faint hums echoed off steel walls, like an engine that never powered down. The 5 agents behind her knew this wasn't standard protocol, but no one said a word. At the 36-foot mark, they stopped. 2 hallways split in opposite directions. Industrial labels stenciled above the corridors in flaking red paint. Archive to the left, reclamation to the right. Dalton pointed left. Archive first, weapons tight, eyes up. They moved. The corridor sloped downward, walls covered in condensation. Then the hallway opened into a chamber, long, low ceiling, humming with static. That's when they saw it. Rows of monitors, hundreds, flickering screens arranged like a grid, each with a name. Most were dark, but a few glowed faint blue. Dalton stepped closer. A monitor pulsed. Lambert, Helen, visual, active. She froze. Everyone, stop. Agent Mercado whispered, "What the hell is this place?" Dalton reached out, pressed play. The screen shifted. A room appeared, metal walls, low light, and in the center, strapped to a medical chair, Helen Lambert. She wasn't unconscious. She wasn't screaming. She was staring at something in front of her. Then, slowly, she turned her head toward the camera. "Jesus Christ," Agent Myers whispered. Helen's lips moved, soundless, but clear. She mouthed 2 words. "They're here." The screen cut to static. Dalton stepped back, breathing shallow.
Pull every active feed, start recording. I want backups of everything before this place goes dark. Agent Kim ran to the control panel. They're running on internal power. This system's decades old, but stable. Pull files on all Lamberts, Dalton ordered. Thomas, Sarah, Daniel. Myers scanned the panels. Sarah Lambert, visual, archived, no feed. Archived? Dalton frowned. What does that mean? Cold storage? Kim guessed. Or worse. Dalton's jaw clenched. Keep looking. Another screen flickered on. Lambert, Daniel, biomonitor, active, visual, denied. Kim tapped. Visuals locked, need elevated access. Override it, Dalton barked. Kim hesitated. If I do, they might know we're here. Dalton didn't flinch. They already know. Kim typed fast. The screen blinked, then lit up. Daniel, 15 years older, thin, pale, sitting in a room with no door, just a metal tray in the corner. He was drawing something, a spiral, over and over. He paused, lifted his head, looked directly into the camera, then smiled. Get me audio, Dalton whispered. Kim tried. No mic feed. This one's receive only. Daniel raised a hand, wrote something on the wall with his finger. Dust clung to the letters. Stop her. Dalton leaned in. Stop who? The screen cut. More static. Kim shook her head. Something killed the feed. Start extraction. Copy everything. Fast. But Myers was at the far wall. Ma'am, there's more. He pointed at another section of monitors. Rows of other names. Not just the Lamberts. Childers, Palmer, Vasquez, over 100. Dalton scanned the list. All missing persons, last 40 years. Then she saw it. Bottom row, her own name. Dalton, Renee, status, monitored. Everyone went silent. Mercado stepped back. What the hell is this? Dalton reached for her comm. Dead. She tried her phone. No signal. I need answers now, she snapped. Where's the central mainframe? Kim looked pale. Probably in reclamation, whatever that means. Dalton stared at her own monitor. The feed was black, but her own vitals were visible. Heart rate, respiration, accurate. Kim checked her pulse. It matched. How long have they been watching me? Dalton whispered. Mercado said, more important, how do they have this data? Dalton turned back toward the hallway. We're going deeper. Myers hesitated. You sure? Dalton's voice sharpened. I'm not leaving with half the truth. Then the monitors began shutting off, one by one. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Power collapsing. The lights dimmed. Red sirens began to blink. And somewhere down the reclamation corridor, something moved.
The image on the screen shook slightly, as if the camera were embedded in sand. Their Jeep sat parked exactly where they left it, above ground, abandoned. But they hadn't told anyone their coordinates. No trackers, no pings, no signals. And yet, someone was watching, in real time. Dalton stepped forward. That's a live feed. Kim nodded. From the desert perimeter, external surveillance. Someone's watching this facility from outside. Dalton clenched her fists. No, someone's watching us inside. The screen zoomed slightly. Not from the wind, not by accident. A figure entered the frame, briefly, just a silhouette. Then vanished behind the Jeep. Dalton grabbed her radio. Still dead. We're being hunted. Myers backed toward the corridor. We need to extract now. Dalton's eyes darted to the other monitors. The one marked Sarah, room 2, flickered back to life. The room was dim. Sarah sat cross-legged in the center, head down, hair longer, shoulders thinner. She was holding something, a worn-out stuffed bear. She spoke. Not to the camera, to herself. They said I'd forget, but I didn't. Dalton stepped closer. Audio's active. Keep it rolling. Sarah's voice cracked. They come at night. They ask the same question. Her eyes lifted, directly into the camera. "Please don't let them take my name." The monitor shook. Then a siren blared behind them. Red lights, deafening. Kim shouted, "System alert, thermal breach, Sector B." Dalton snapped back to focus. "Where's Sector B?" Myers checked the map. "Opposite wing, near reclamation." Dalton drew her Glock. "They're coming from the other corridor." Kim's voice cracked. "Do we stay with the monitors?" Dalton stared at the screens. Helen, Sarah, Daniel, still alive, still locked, still talking. "I can't leave them," she muttered. Then another monitor blinked. Not a room, a hallway camera. Static, then focus. 3 armed soldiers, black visors, no insignia. Marching toward them. "Move," Dalton barked. "Defensive spread." They scrambled, light strobing, metal doors groaning. Dalton yanked open a side panel. "Emergency exfil tunnel," marked with rusted letters, C4 exfil. She turned to Kim. "Back up what you can. 2 minutes, then burn the servers." "What?" Kim froze. "We can't." "We're not letting them erase this again." Dalton crouched. "Get me hard copies. I'll hold them off." Myers and Mercado took defensive positions. The thumping grew louder. Steel boots, coordinated. Kim ripped open the server panel, disks flying. Dalton watched the hallway monitor. The soldiers stopped, raised weapons, paused. Then one typed into a wrist-mounted console. The door behind them sealed. Dalton realized it too late. They're not here to fight. Myers shouted, "They're rerouting the air." The vents hissed. A green mist poured in. Kim screamed, "Gas!" Dalton fired 3 rounds into the camera. Sparks flew. She turned to Kim. "Disks, now." Kim tossed 2 drives. Dalton caught them. Mercado coughed, collapsed. Dalton grabbed Kim and yanked her into the exfil shaft. The door slammed behind them. Complete silence. Then the tunnel lights flickered on. A whisper floated through the vent. Not electronic. A voice, familiar. Helen's. "They don't want answers." Dalton's heart pounded. She held the drives close and kept moving down the tunnel, not realizing someone else was following. The moment Fisk raised the gun, Dalton didn't hesitate. She dove behind a steel console, bullets ripping through the air. Kim screamed, ducked beside her. Sparks flew from a shattered monitor. "Fisk's turned," Dalton shouted. Kim's voice cracked. "He was with us the whole time." No, he was planted from the start. Fisk advanced slowly, weapon steady, boots echoing against the metal floor. "You should have stayed out of it, Dalton." "Why? So we could keep pretending this place didn't exist?" He laughed. "It's not about pretending. It's about preserving what matters." "You mean covering up murder?" "It's not murder if they signed up." Dalton's eyes narrowed. "They were a family, Fisk, with kids." "They were chosen. That's different." Dalton leaned out and fired. Fisk ducked, missed. "Where's the real command?" she yelled. "Who's giving you orders?" Fisk stepped closer. "The same ones that kept your name out of the archives. You're not special. You're lucky." Dalton whispered to Kim, "On my count, run for the shaft." Kim gripped the hard drives, nodded. Dalton jumped from cover and fired twice. Fisk flinched. Kim bolted. Dalton followed. Fisk shouted, "You can't run! There's nowhere to go!" They slid into a side tunnel. It was narrow, cramped. Water dripped from overhead pipes. Dalton slammed a lever. A rusted gate clanged shut behind them. For now, sealed. "Where does this go?" Kim gasped. Dalton checked the emergency map, faded and warped on the wall. "It's not labeled. Could be maintenance. Could be a trap." Kim handed her the drives. "Whatever happens, this can't die down here." Dalton stared at the blinking lights.
Agreed. Footsteps above them. A door clanked open. Then came the voice. Female, calm, robotic. Unit breach detected. Activating secondary purge. Dalton grabbed Kim's hand. Run. They sprinted through darkness. Lights flickered, barely guiding the path. Behind them, a rumble began. Something heavy, moving fast. Kim gasped, "What is that?" Dalton didn't look back. Security, non-human. The rumble grew louder, mechanical, like tank treads. They turned a corner and stopped cold. Dead end. A sealed hatch, manual crank, no power. Dalton grabbed the wheel. It didn't move. Kim looked behind. Red glow approaching. She raised her weapon. "I'll buy time. Get the door open." "No," Dalton snapped. "We leave together." She pulled harder, muscles straining. The crank turned, just an inch. Then another. The hatch groaned. The red light flooded the corridor. Kim aimed. The rumble turned into screeching metal. A massive shape, faceless, plated, armored, rounded the corner. Dalton screamed, "Now!" The hatch flew open. They dove through. Dalton slammed it shut and twisted the wheel. Locked. A thud hit the door. Then another. The metal bent slightly inward. Then stopped. Total silence. Dalton collapsed to the floor. Chest heaving. Kim clutched the drives like gold. Dalton looked up. They were in another chamber, but this one was different. No monitors, just rows and rows of cryopods. Sealed glass, frosted over. Dalton stepped closer, wiped a pod's surface. Inside, a man. Eyes closed, breathing slow. 15 years older, but unmistakably Thomas Lambert. Dalton whispered, "My God." Kim staggered to the next pod. Helen, then Daniel, then Sarah, alive, frozen, labeled. Dalton fell to her knees. "This whole time," Kim whispered, "they never meant to kill them." "No," Dalton said. "They meant to keep them." She turned to Kim. "And I think we just found why."
Dalton tore through the corridor, lungs burning, blood dripping from her arm. The hard drive bounced against her side with every step. Behind her, metallic footsteps. Too smooth, too fast. She glanced back. Nothing. Yet the air shifted, the walls vibrated. Then, a scream. From one of the cages. Dalton skidded to a stop, turned. A child pressed his face to the bars, eyes wide but empty. He mouthed one word, "Run." She stepped closer. "Who are you?" He didn't blink, just repeated the motion. "Run." Another scream. From the next cage, a woman this time. Face familiar. It hit her. She was in the archive feeds, room 7, still alive, but broken. Dalton backed away. Lights flickered. Doors opened further down. She ran, turned a corner, and there it was. The reclamation chamber. Massive, industrial, humming. In the center, a pit. No railings, just a circle of steel. And in that pit, dozens of pods, like the ones before. But half of these were open, empty. Dalton crept closer. Monitors blinked around the perimeter. Old test logs, data charts. One file pulsed red. Reclamation cycle, in progress. She clicked it. A video loaded. Security cam, low res. Inside, a pod, one of the Lamberts. Helen, waking up, screaming. Then, a voice. Synthetic, female. Subject memory failure. Voice resistance minimal. Reprogramming sequence rejected. Then, a shock. Helen convulsed. Dalton flinched, looked away.
God. She turned toward the next monitor. This one was worse. Daniel, smaller, hooked to electrodes, still conscious, still whispering. I remember, Mom. I remember. Stop saying I don't. Dalton yanked the drive from the panel. Behind her, another hiss. She spun. Fisk. Bleeding, smiling, gun raised. You're just like her. You won't shut up. Dalton aimed. I will if you will. They fired at the same time. Both hit. Dalton dropped to her knees, shoulder throbbing. Fisk fell flat, silent. Dalton crawled to the edge of the pit, looked down. More pods, more names. Lambert wasn't the only family. There were dozens, hundreds. Every pod a memory file, voice logs, neural scans. Dalton whispered, "They're not storing people." She stared at a console beside the pit. Input, voice authority. She leaned in, whispered, "Special Agent Renee Dalton, FBI." The console blinked. Access granted. A hatch opened in the floor. Ladder descending into darkness. Behind her, the siren stopped. Complete silence. Even the gas vents shut down. Dalton turned to leave, then stopped. On the wall above the exit, a massive symbol. 2 circles, overlapping. And beneath it, Project K-12, Continuity Protocol. Dalton whispered, "What the hell is continuity?" Footsteps echoed above, more coming. She grabbed the ladder, started down, one step at a time, into the dark, into the program, with the drives, with the truth. And far above, Fisk's radio still buzzed. A voice came through. Asset compromised. Deploy next handler.
Dalton stood frozen. The room reeked of bleach and rust. Every surface gleamed except the floor, still stained with old blood. A surgical tray lay overturned, one scalpel dangling off the edge like a clock's second hand stuck in time. The minivan sat in the center, surrounded by floodlights. Its beige paint had faded. Dust coated its windows. But inside, it was pristine, as if preserved. The doors were wide open, restraints on every seat, buckles undone, as if someone had just slipped out. And on the passenger seat, the baby shoe. Dalton moved closer, reached out, touched the fabric. Cold. Not just cold, wrong. Plastic, but soft. New, but dusted, like it hadn't aged in 15 years. A speaker above her crackled. "Are you ready to forget now?" She stepped back, drew her sidearm. "Identify yourself." The voice chuckled, synthetic, feminine. "You already know me, Agent Dalton." Dalton aimed at the ceiling. "I'm with the FBI. You're violating federal law. This ends now." The voice replied, calm as a whisper. "No, Agent. You already ended. You just didn't notice." Dalton pulled out her badge, raised it. "You think a voice scares me? You kidnapped children. You tortured families. You're going to answer for every name in that archive. Do you really believe that drive will make it to daylight?" Dalton's hand gripped the hard drive tighter in her pocket. "I'll crawl out of here if I have to." "No, Renee, you'll forget, like they all did." The room's lights snapped off. Blackness. Metal screeched. A door slammed. Then, silence. Dalton blinked, reached for her flashlight, clicked it on. The beam flicked across the minivan. The baby shoe was gone. What the hell? Suddenly, boom! The ceiling above exploded. Concrete shattered. Ropes dropped. Voices shouting. "Clear! Get eyes on the package!" Dalton threw herself against the minivan as the rescue team descended. Guns drawn, helmets reflective, no insignias. One soldier landed beside her, lifted his visor. "Agent Dalton?" She nodded, handed him the drive. "Take this and don't stop running." "What about you?" She pointed toward the corridor. "There are others, still alive, still in cages. They don't scream anymore, but they're not gone." He hesitated, then signaled his unit. "Alpha, secure asset. Bravo, sweep east corridor." Dalton stood, blood trickling from her sleeve. The minivan sat quiet, but her flashlight caught movement inside. A figure in the back seat. Just for a second. Then gone. She stepped closer, gun raised. "Sarah?" No response. Only the faint sound of a tape rewinding. Then, click. A child's voice. "Mom said not to open the door, but I did." Dalton lowered her weapon, and, for the first time since entering, she felt it. Not fear, not pain, something deeper, like she was inside a memory, one that wasn't hers. She whispered, "They're rewriting the past." The rescue team's radio crackled. "Enemy contact! South tunnel! Repeat, we've got movement!" Static. Then screaming. Dalton looked up. Time was gone. And the war wasn't just about what happened. It was who remembered.
Weeks later, Dalton lay in a hospital bed, monitors beeping softly around her. Bandaged from shoulder to waist, burns along her left side, and ribs that screamed with every breath. But her eyes were open. The door creaked. Helen stepped in, slower now, thin, eyes blank. She carried a small box, set it on the side table. Dalton nodded. "Is it from the base?" Helen didn't answer, just sat. The silence stretched. Then, "They kept the others." Dalton tensed. "Who?" Helen's gaze was distant. "People before us, people after. No one escapes." "What were they doing down there?" Helen didn't blink. "Rewriting us." Dalton leaned forward, pain shot up her spine. "Why didn't they finish with your family?" "We were a test. Then something broke. They left us unfinished." Dalton opened the box. Inside, the hard drive, cleaned, wrapped in cloth. Helen stood. "Don't trust the hearing. The questions are rehearsed." Dalton whispered, "You're not coming with me, are you?" Helen shook her head. "It's already begun again." 2 weeks later, Dalton stood before a private congressional panel. Cameras rolled, but only 3 senators watched, behind closed doors. She testified about the van, the hatch, the cages, the children. A man in a gray suit interrupted. "Any proof of these claims?" Dalton slid the hard drive across the table. Silence. Another senator. "You're aware this information threatens national interests?" Dalton didn't flinch. "Then maybe your interests are the problem." The next morning, someone leaked the footage. 6 minutes of raw, uncut terror. Helen's voice, the rooms, the children, the logo, reclamation zone. It spread fast. Then came the shutdowns. First the news channels, then social media accounts. Dalton's name vanished from government listings. Web results returned errors. The video, scrubbed. Even screenshots corrupted. Dalton resigned in silence. Her final memo, circulated in encrypted forums, contained one line. "If I vanish next, check the satellite maps. They always leave a shadow." The night after that memo, she returned home. Porch lights flickered. A cold wind swept across the yard. Something waited on the steps. A single baby shoe. Different color, different size. She didn't touch it. Just whispered, "Whose is it this time?"